Howdy, my name is Alex, but you can call me Pityu. This wasn't my original plan for the second log, but while writing the script I realized that this will be a long series and very underrated, at least in the beginning. As usual with stories based on truth, it's not very exciting first, or later. Having a cool backstory is relative. Drama is cool for some reason, and it gets sympathy in the audience. Probably that's the reason. So drama is going to be my climax too. I have to say it now, otherwise you're not gonna watch this video till the end. But the tension has to build up, which is hard for me, because I'm still practicing the emphasis thing on my voice with recording. It's frustrating, because sounding boring is a bad experience for you, and not having likes is bad experience for me. Everybody loses. You see, the drama has already started. I think I should explain my approach of my stories with my base feelings, which is that many times I feel like a failure. I have my reasons for that, and I have the mindset to put it aside and enjoy life as it is, but not to wipe it out completely. I believe my progress and mentality is a good example to show, and because I hardly feel genuinely high about myself, if I believe that, it means it has to be legit in some extent. I think many of you could relate to that, although not many of you watch this, but I should express myself as if I would have an audience already. This is fucked up. Whatever. This is just a start. Hopefully. I might not achieve success, and I have the feeling that I shouldn't. It's just that I know that the feeling is coming from inside of my mind, that only very few people knows only fragments about these deeper doubts, because I only try to show them now that I understand them more. Of course I try to hide them all my life. Try to power through and behave like I'm strong in every aspect and confident and able to overcome everything, and it resulted in minimizing my struggles and act like I've dealt with everything that actually buried inside me to poison me against myself and my own life. When I asked for help, it was too late, and few took me seriously. I didn't even understand why wouldn't my problems matter. All their problems matter to me. Why were mine tossed aside? We see success everywhere we look. We see people with talent reaching the fame we admire, and we hardly see behind the curtain to understand their struggles. And we are the ones who are less than half complete, without faith in ourselves, because we were passed around by trials of life, trying to find that thing we can attach ourselves to, and finally feel like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. But it never happened, or lasted so short that we could barely grasp it enough to realize that the feeling exists. I'm on behalf of those with the feeling of failure in themselves. Hidden or obvious, doesn't matter. I am one of them. The mindset has to be changed, or else there is no escape from there. Watching and listening to those who were starting their life in living conditions that we consider as already successful is just hard to relate to. Although I have never lived in poverty, I'm coming from a social class that is barely over that, but proudly expresses itself as if we were high above it, without realizing how much of a gap we should climb to have the same social class in Western societies. Actually, our brain protects our mental health with keeping that feeling of scale not comprehensible, so we wouldn't feel even more like a failure. However, our conscience constantly gets those glimpses on popular figures and celebrities, so the wall of protection our mind provides is not enough in many cases. And we grew up into that. That is why my story about how I've grown and experienced failure will be my example to perform a mental autopsy on, and this is somewhat a TLDR version of it all. A poorly composed roadmap for some stuff that I will expand on future videos. Without the details, this will not really explain the journey of becoming me and wanting to be a YouTuber, and don't get me wrong, this way I don't think anyone should care. People would think like, who wouldn't want that? You're doing whatever you want, probably playing all day long, get rich easily with no boss to impress and whatnot. Well, I have no idea about that yet. Sounds good alright, but actually I'm poor as fuck and try to make ends meet and doing all this besides working. I can see my own YouTube history until now, and at this time I have 9 subscribers. What a fame, eh? Originally, my life shouldn't have been leading to this moment, and that's where I'm gonna start. In school, I was an average student, almost the worst in my class, but my class was kind of an elite, and I was not taking my part of the elite title. I had to be told that our class was considered to be an exceptionally good one, because all my life I felt and behaved as an average person, so I didn't realize it by myself. And it wasn't like that just then. It's a forever ongoing feeling, even though I know that I wasn't usually perceived as I was thinking that I appeared. Both in good and bad meaning. There was this first club that we called Stella because of the Stella Artois sign over the entrance, but I learned later that people I didn't know then thought about me as that cocky and aggressive looking guy. For the record, I was doing a spiky hairstyle with a lot of gel, because without that my hair looked unacceptably ugly. My clothing was the 90s loose, bag-like trousers and shirts. I was listening to Dre, Tupac, Eminem. Before them East 17, after them Linkin Park and Nightwish. But the rap songs didn't matter if East or West Coast, and video games like Heroes of Might and Magic taught me the English language. During the second half of my high school years, I started socializing outside of my childhood, and the girls from class helped me with that. Yep, my classmates were mostly girls. So I knew how to be friends with girls, but I didn't know how to get a girlfriend. It didn't matter much that they were trying to help me with that, and I had to realize much later that they didn't know how to either. It happened around the same time that I started to write poems. Just for no reason. It was unexpected. Where was I? Ah yes. Girls are cruel as fuck. And they don't even know it most of the time. An incident resulted as an insult to my sensitive soul that kept me from being confident in the necessary moments for a very long time. To be honest, it was never really gone. It just evolved, and there's lots of other shit around since then. So, there was this one girl in particular. I'm not using the real names, so I'm gonna call her Brittany. My story with her is really one-sided, and it took me years to manage situations to be around her, and I was still kind of blocked by myself. The whole thing was very unsuccessful in every meaning, and it took its toll on me. But on the other hand, it resulted in me finding a direction to improve myself. The details on this part will require a whole video by itself. And this is the way of me signaling some sub-stories that are to be expected in this series, because I know that these were milestones in my personality. I've met my first significant girlfriend when I was 18, almost 19. It was a short one. And you will hear this sentence a lot. The second one was 2 years later in college. And it was a short one. Both were very important though in their own way. High school graduation was like mandatory for me in my own eyes. My father wanted to take me out of school a few years before that, and maybe he was just trying to push me in his own way, although considering that he left school when he was the same age, I don't think that he was just trying to give me a lesson. I felt that he wanted to put me to work. Ooh. I wasn't ready to leave my childhood then, and I wasn't even closely familiar with the concept of working for a while after that. Emotionally though, the leaving childhood thing was a very different sensation that resulted in some insomnia-like experiences, and I ended up with a psychologist checking on my mental health. As I look back now, he said all the right things that I needed to hear that time. I was already very grateful to him then and considered him as a friend, but decades later, you guys have no idea. Details on that will be in another video. So, jumping back to the timeline, I've graduated without my virginity, which had its importance, and went to college to study IT engineering. Just kidding, to prove my dad wrong, but in a different city. In the beginning of the third year, I was still living an abstinent life. No alcohol, no drugs. I had my own ways of secret self-destruction that I didn't even know about. But then I had a girlfriend who was roughly put, wild. And that was a short one. She broke up with me after 2 months, cheating on me halfway through, and I felt that the distance between us was my polished personality, coming from my high school experiences, against her uncontrollable one, coming from her way more complicated backstory. The main thing is that I started drinking with the intention to change. And it was college, so it was fine to get drunk on 6 days of every week, wasn't it? But a few months later, I wasn't feeling my disappointment to decrease, so I wanted to fall deeper into my self-loathing hole. I have picked up a substance that I have been extremely disapproving before. Weed. Details on that will be probably in more videos later. So that came hand in hand with smoking cigarettes as well, although the drinking thing was suddenly almost entirely left behind. Then there were the mid-year exams where I realized something, that I didn't care about college at all. I didn't do it for myself, just in defiance of my father's expectations about me. The worry of failing was much stronger in me than the determination to finish. Fucking up an exam like that made me cry about the feeling of change. I knew then that I had to drop out from college. I knew that I had to disappoint my parents and leave all my friends I've gathered there. I knew I'll have to find another purpose, and it was scary because I had no idea what it will be. In the meantime, my writing skill had changed too. From poems, my main methods had switched to short stories and novels, and my style and perspective had changed a lot during the last semester. I'm not saying that there was any substance that had anything to do with all the changes in my perception about the world, but I'm not saying the opposite either. Although, when I returned home a few weeks into the summer, my parents realized that I was smoking stuff. So weed was banned for me after that, and it was alright. I didn't plan to keep it away from me though, and at the beginning of next semester I have visited my friends in college for the first week, which was all about parties with the freshmen. I was very welcomed with tremendous amount of weed, and it just scared me, because I saw myself from a few months before. That was an experience much needed for my later years, because it made me learn to have my own boundaries. I cannot emphasize the importance of that. Details, I've already mentioned. It applies. In my hometown, there was another college, and I was starting there again, but that was just like to compromise with my parents and leading over. I've lost my momentum, and shortly after that I had my first job as a land surveyor assistant, a small helper in a private business, but I like topography, and I like nature, and I was making myself useful. I liked it as a start in the real life, and had a few adventures worth foretelling. In some other video. In the meantime I was dreaming about becoming a good writer, to write scripts for movies maybe. Well, my father repeatedly told me how good for nothing skill writing is. You might think that I was over with trying to impress my parents, right? I thought so too, but I wasn't. And that's why I started to neglect my writing habits. I was reading a lot instead. They were expecting something else from me, something more. How much they didn't understand me and kept me from understanding myself, it's shocking for me to this day. Girls were coming and going without any lasting effect on my life, until one came along who changed a lot in me in the way that I wanted to achieve more. And it was a short one. I should give her a fake name too. Gina would be about right. It was around that time that I've learned to play the devil sticks, soon with fire as well. There were more than a dozen of us having fun with fire juggling, but on the first winter only 6 of us remained who were not caring about cold or any obstacles. We were playing and practicing almost every day. We made a fire juggling association called Lobbanásmond, which can be translated as Flashpoint, and for 6 years it was pretty much the main career of my life. Parents considered it only as a hobby that I will grow out. More on the curse of parental expectations later in this video, and lots of others. On the side I was taking a course of retail business and getting the rights to open my own gift shop. I was investing into that my grandmother's fund for my wedding, and I remember that time I was sitting down with her talking about how important it was for me, and her ever-caring eyes wanting to give me what could make me happy. I have to stop here to explain something that can easily be misunderstood. My parents are good people. My mother always tried her best, and is overprotective to this day. My father provided against a lot of odds, and even though he mostly stopped caring about this whole life thing a while ago, and I have a lot of things against him, their main flaw is that they didn't know better. I'm not angry at them because of that. I don't blame them for that. I don't expect them to make it right. All of that is my responsibility now. But that doesn't erase the fact that their ways have results on me. That's just how things go. Their intentions were always good. That being said, they are not from a background that would allow them to comprehend what I'm trying to say here. And I might not even be able to say anything to demonstrate how different I've become from them. At the time, I wasn't aware of that, and I still very much wanted to be the good son. So I've been listening to their advices about what kind of shop should I make, and how, and where. Mistakes were made. This was all during my relationship with Gina, whom I was in love with very much, and it was mutual. She was the coolest ever bartender in the second club where I was spending all my time and money when I was not working or juggling. The club was a part of the network of cellars under my hometown. This is actually a vast network, and most of them are there for about 500 years now. For more than a decade that was kind of my second home. Lots of friends, some very good and reliable ones lasting still, and an insane amount of parties. I really miss that place. So Gina remained very important to me after we broke up, even though I was struggling to accept the times following. We dealt with all that in time and became best friends even to this day. Back then, that was leading to me being a favored member of the club, and I became friends with the club operators as well, one in particular. They gave me the opportunity to play my favorite music playlists in the small room, and later even in the big one where the main events took place. My music library was really containing almost everything. The most frequent at that time were ska, reggae and goa. I was known. I was cool. I was popular. I was living the time of my life. I felt that I was getting somewhere and I enjoying the journey. As I think back now, it's weird that YouTube wasn't even a thing at that time. I started my business. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, but I had my touch in it. I was my own boss, after all. And then I've met her. I'm gonna call her Arya. She was the one who could make all the good things about my life connect in a way so I could feel the real happiness for a while. The first time I've understood what that really means. I've been in love before, but Arya was maybe something even more. I could praise her and those times endlessly, and I probably will in a video dedicated to that part, but the main thing is that it didn't last forever. And things started to fall apart in other ways too. I've closed my business before it went bankrupt, and just before spring, I had to realize my loss. I went to work in her factory for a year. At the end of summer, the relationship with Arya came to an ultimate end, and I had to realize my loss. The juggling was my grip to my reality, and a year later there were fights rising inside our association, and we kind of fell apart. I saw it in a way that either some of us leave and the Flashpoint stays alive, or all of us spread in every way. I went with the first one. Flashpoint is still performing shows, and it's about 15 years old now, so I don't regret anything. But I had to realize my loss. During that last year, with only juggling, producing juggler toys, selling them around the country and different events while making choreography for the shows, I started to learn monetary politics and sales techniques. Then out of the blue, a couple amongst my closer friends were just mentioning that they are thinking about trying their luck in the UK. At that time, my ex-bartender ex was trying to convince me to move to the UK for about 5 years. But I was attached to juggling, and to Arya, and to my business, and to my happiness. Not in that order. But they were all gone. And the worst part of all, that I was still living with my parents and never got the opportunity to move from them. The feeling of failure was slowly but effectively consuming me. So moving to the UK was suddenly making a lot of sense, and I said to those friends that we should do it. We shouldn't wait. And it worked very well. At the start of the next month we all quit our jobs, and at the end of the same month we arrived here, where I'm writing this story. That was 9 years ago, so we are not finished at all. In just a few months, my living conditions have changed significantly. I mean, I ended up in a 3x3 square, but that was my square. I was on my own finally, and I was able to rely only on myself, and I could provide more than I needed. I could help friends with their struggles at home. I could save up for the future. I could spend on my health, and I could finally have a closure over Arya. If anyone is curious, that was about 3 or 4 years after the breakup. Worth to mention that she's my best and most trusted friend to this day, so the struggle was worth it. On the subject of friendship between genders, there will definitely be a video later. And that will be a weird one, I'm sure. After 1.5 years here, I was feeling that staying here is not fulfilling though. It was a good arrive in the UK, but changes were needed, and I started planning my leave. That was my last trip home during a winter, when I went on a ski trip with my sister and her husband, and there was a week left for me in my hometown after that. I've met a girl, let's call her Anna, and we connected immediately. But of course, it was a short one. She was all over moving to the UK well before meeting me, but she didn't feel prepared and didn't know the language either. I told her that I could help her with that. That in a few months I can return to Hungary, we can get ready together, give it a year, and I have enough money saved for the whole operation. We were so excited about that. Well, by the time I returned home, she was taken. That was a slap in the face. But anyways, I was home again, so I was using that time with my friends, hitting up the gym regularly, going on summer events, things like that. By the end of summer, we somehow ended up with Anna and I chatting a lot. Her relationship didn't really work out, and she felt guilty because she misled me a few months before. In a few weeks we fell in love. She wasn't together with that boyfriend, but they were living in the same apartment, and she had to move to a place where she could take her dog too. I have arranged for her my late grandmother's place, and she moved there. The old ladies living in the building were all against her because of her dog, and in just 2 weeks things fell apart. Details will be told sometime, but in short, somehow she decided to return to her ex. That was a slap in the face. Again. Girls are cruel as fuck. I ended up in a dilemma about returning to the UK or trying to do something at home. To this day, I don't know if I decided wrong or right. In a materialistic way, I've made the worst decision of my life and stayed, and I have moved into the flat instead of Anna. Tried my luck in sales, and somehow I blinded myself for a part of reality that was happening, and that resulted in me breaking down in every meaning possible. I had no money. I had only a few good and reliable friends, all living far from me. I had to return to live with my parents for 2 years. I have never felt that I've been deeper in depression in my whole life, even though I've been halfway a few times. I went to work as a nighttime receptionist doing 12-hour shifts, 60 to 72 hours a week, and working on every single weekend. I wasn't going out anyways. My friends were not there, so what would be the point? Getting a girlfriend? Love was something I didn't want to hear about. I mean, even when I was kind of dating someone from my past with my best intentions, I left with disappointment before anything could happen. I soon became one of the unluckiest men I've ever known. Even though I was, and I am still thinking that I can be grateful because I could experience what true happiness was, even for a short time. And I'm still unlucky as fuck. Just wait a bit, and if you have any doubt, you will agree. I was saving up so I could return to the UK, and then something came along that pulled me back to sales. It was a fishy sounding business, but with the right investment it could bring sudden profit. It was a network, so I didn't want anyone around me involved until I didn't feel safe. Soon I could live a dream life of worry that it could fall apart any day and use my days for learning motivational psychology all the time. But I had to move from my parents, that was the most important thing. The moment I have rented an apartment, the business fell apart. Some of my so-called friends who were doing the same business, they were pretending in front of people they were negotiating with that everything is still fine, and that was disgusting for me. Once again, I had to realize my loss. I renovated the apartment, found a job as a CNC operator, and I had to learn the profession for that as well, but I became good in what I was doing, and I could keep myself fed. Here, I think I should explain a few things about being poor and having a job with competitive salary in Hungary. In the UK, I was on minimum wage with 30 hours a week, and that was enough for food, for rent, for savings, for traveling, for some parties, for some earthly values, for helping out friends, and mostly for not to worry about money. In London, it wouldn't be close enough though, but on the countryside it was okay. For native UK citizens it isn't much, because they are somehow able to spend it all on unnecessary things. I try not to judge, but it's not that easy. In Hungary though, the competitive salary that I had was enough for me to pay cheap food, for paying a cheap rent, and I had to save up for some earthly values if I wanted something. Or I could have gone for a few parties if I were to choose that instead. That's it. And that was the most I have ever earned in my hometown. It's pathetic. So I started to save up one more time to return to the UK while Brexit was starting to be a thing. In the factory we were processing materials that are bad for health in the long term. We had no chairs and had 12-hour day and night shifts as well. By that time, I completely forgot what it was like to have a girlfriend. Going out for a drink was rare, and I barely ever drank more than one. Many times not even the one. I felt constantly tired, never completely awake. Something that Neil could have felt. Then 2 years ago I have returned. Details on that later. My main thing was, I needed people around me. Good company to talk with, getting new impressions, and an easy job that takes away all my worries. This place was perfect for me that way, and I could feel relief once more after so many years. I felt like I had thrown away 7 years for nothing. But it wasn't for nothing. Those years were very much filled with self-improvement, and in some ways I think I had to have that breakdown. In other ways though, I'm not sure. I mean, I can appreciate good things much easier because of the gap between them and the bad stuff, but couldn't I appreciate them enough without losing so much? And so many times? These are the kind of thoughts that I direct to the learn from them box and keep away from the what if box, and that's for the sake of my mental health. I highly advise everyone to do the same with their past because it means a lot. Is my story over then? Nope. There's one more thing. I was already preparing for making a YouTube channel then, and for different reasons than now. Looking after all the methods and the algorithm, and practicing to record while talking in English, fighting with the audio quality, it was hard, and I was progressing so slowly that it required a lot of persistence. Especially after I got sick, and my back was hurting after that like hell for months. I was struggling with back pain for years before, but those months were the worst. Next to that, my left eye suddenly decided to have an injury on the front of my pupil, so everything is just blurry there since. It felt, or should I say, feels like my body slowly gives up its main functionalities. Fuck it, I'm tough, I'll endure, I thought. And I did. But then I had to return to Hungary to renew my passport, so when Brexit happens I'll be able to travel. I didn't want to go home. There was only Arya and another friend whom I was missing to see. It was a nuisance, and the closer the trip was, the more stressed out I've got. Finally it happened, and the first day at home I was eating one of my favorite food, doing the password thing, meeting up with a friend in the afternoon, trying out a new flavor of energy drink, getting home for the night, sitting in front of YouTube, and about midnight-ish, getting a heart attack. Yep, no joke there. A fucking heart attack. For hours I didn't even know what was going on. I did not collapse with pain. It was just unbearably uncomfortable, like the worst sour muscle experience in my left arm, shoulder, through my neck, up to my chin, that I could ever imagine. After a while I was in the condition that I couldn't take the pain and the numbness anymore, and my heart rate was dancing to the rhythm I've never heard about, so I've called my brother-in-law, who is a doctor, to examine what is going on. The sun was already getting up when I arrived to his office, and an hour later I was in a different city prepared for a catheter to lead up through my arm all the way to my heart to check on the main arteries. That 1 week of holiday lasted for 6 months. I had to stay in Hungary for 6 months when I was hating the thought of being there even for a week. It changed me. Of course it changed me. I had a fucking heart attack at the age of 36 while living a normal life. Not the healthiest, I know, but not even close to deserving that. Not one of my blood tests were showing any results of me having high cholesterol or anything that could be the cause of it. My arteries were clean. I eat quite healthy, maybe a bit more meat than I should, but mostly chicken, lots of vegetables and fruits. And I'm not even overweight either. Now with all the pandemic stuff I'm slowly getting there, but not a year ago, and definitely not compared to people not getting a heart attack with much worse conditions and habits. It makes me furious to think about that, and I'm rarely furious. It fucking changed me and the purpose of my remaining life. I finally have something to say. I finally feel that I want to leave behind my words for others so they can get my perspective. To maybe find people who agree or disagree, who understands me or understands that I'm seeing things wrong and they might be telling me right. I want to tell people who are in need for understanding what I had to look for and I'm still looking for because no one came to me to tell the things I needed to hear. I'm so grateful for the handful of people who were actually able to say those meaningful things to me that I can never forget. If I'm able to reach someone with my words the same way, then what I'm doing has its meaning. I could say that I have more details on these things later, but basically the whole channel is based on the purpose of this. Am I struggling with language while doing that? Yes, but is that the important part? I will get better. It won't keep me from doing this. I just hope that I'll be able to make some of these videos in time. Because I will die. Sooner than later, probably. I'm having a hard time explaining that to people around me because I'm treated as I shouldn't say things like that. As if most of them didn't get the memo that everybody dies. That's just how it goes. It's part of the show. My chances are just worse now and I see that with realism. And I might seem like I'm seeking attention. But fuck attention. Watch my videos and like them and comment so the algorithm can put them in the face of people. That's all the attention I need now. Easy to pretend for anyone to care. Life and death has a different meaning now. I don't want to die, of course not. I'm an idiot, but not stupid. A year ago that was because I wanted to live. Today it is because I want to tell as much as I can before I die. Let it be 1 year, or 10, or 40. And before you think that I'm just painting myself in a glorious color, nope. I also want to play with as many good games as possible because I was missing out on them. I want to enjoy all that's left. I have enjoyment in making these videos, otherwise I wouldn't put as much work in them. I would have better things to do, I guess. But I don't. I was looking for something else for a long time and neglected all that was making me feel good. I was a gamer once and I neglected my gamer self, so I'd be more appreciated by what I thought about society, and the thing is that all that doesn't matter. Because nobody cares, not on the scale that I was trying. I wanted to make my parents proud and understood that I've made the wrong approach, and that made me not being able to dedicate my life neither for them nor for myself. That was leading to an inevitable fall, and the only way for standing up, to really stand up, not just pretend, I needed my self-esteem to reborn. I don't want anyone to fall like I did. It's avoidable, it's unnecessary, and not even closely is in every case recoverable. My story is not complete yet. Maybe never will be. I feel there are parts still missing, but I think that is just the way life feels. There are much worse fates than mine, and it's not a race on that. I wasn't trying to have a bad life, you know, and for many parts my life was awesome. But the premise, the ups and downs, and because this is my life, I can use it as an example for many things I want to talk about. Just the fact that proofreading this script made me realize how much I unintentionally written my life as objectively as possible tells me that I still feel average. I might have a ring of +5 charisma, but that's coming off a lot. That is why I will tell more about this life, focusing on what changed me, and how, and why are those important, and what did I learn about myself because of them. Because for a long time I was lost. Being lost can be a bliss, but only if you are happy that way. If you are looking to find peace with yourself though, now that's where my journey leads. And you are welcome to come along.